Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntra's here. Sorry about that, Scott.
That's all right.
I'm like, wait a minute. Where's Scott? There he is. This is a chance to do a little State of Star Trek conversation. And all of you have been on such Word Balloons in the past, but I'm happy to reintroduce you. As the screen is showing to me, to my right, the man behind AIT Planet Lair, Larry Young. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Below me, the comic creator of Visitations, a wonderful supernatural series that's based in our hometown, Chicago. It's Scott Larson.
Hi, everyone.
There you go. And our returning champion, an academic of renown and one of my favorite columnists at Medium.com. I don't know if you're still posting stuff over there, John. But all right, well, there you go. But I've enjoyed his essays in particular about Star Trek. It's John Price, everybody.
How's everybody doing?
Good to see you guys. All right, there's my bathroom for a second. The camera may twist, and you may see my bathroom at various states of this conversation. But guys, I think now Scott and I had talked about Star Trek Picard, I believe, in the past. Mm-hmm. But John and Larry, I think the last time we talked was season 2 of Discovery. I don't think we talked Picard, did we?
I don't remember talking.
I don't think so. No.
All right.
It's hard to believe that was 2020. Like Picard came and went. Like 7 months ago. Yeah,
and I mean, and certainly since then we've had one season of Lower Decks, and now we just began Discovery, and third season of Discovery, and Star Trek Day has come and gone, September 8th, and there's a lot of weird stuff going on in Star Trek. I mean, beyond the dramas and stuff, and I hope we'll cover all of this. But well, honestly, let's catch up. Scott, I know again we've talked about Picard. But you, what was your assessment of the season 1 of Picard?
I was pretty happy with it. It was really my introduction to CBS All Access Star Trek, because I missed the first 2 seasons of Discovery, and Discovery wasn't enough to bring me back, but Picard was. So I enjoyed it. I mean, I always wanted to go to the future anyway. So that was really where I wanted to go since 2001, since Voyager ended. So it was exactly what I wanted.
All right, fair enough. Excellent. And Larry, your reputation precedes you. Randall Armstrong, already excited that you're here. So
hey, Randall.
There you go. So yeah, what were your thoughts on Picard?
I wanted to like Picard. Obviously, Patrick Stewart has all the goodwill in the world. Like he could have just done, what he could have done Picard, and I still would have liked it, which I kind of did. I mean, it was very, I don't know. I have a complex relationship with it because they boned the end as far as I'm concerned. I'm always with the human adventure is just beginning. So turning Picard into a robot, it just seems the anti-Star Trek. It's like, what? What are you guys doing? So
weird ending. Yeah, weird ending.
Weird. Yeah.
John?
Um, I loved the first episode. I really liked his little Irish housekeepers. I thought that was awesome. The three of them should have just been the whole
His
main
Irish,
cast.
his Irish
Yeah.
Romulan.
Yeah.
Shite.
Yeah. And then every episode just kept getting like a little bit weirder and worse and away from the Irish people. So by the time we get to the last episode, it's like, yeah, I agree. I think they screwed up the ending big time. And I think they know they screwed up the ending big time, which is why they immediately tried to retcon it by saying, "Oh no, you're still Picard. It's just now you're a robot." Okay, like all
He's
right.
Roger Corby.
Right.
I am Roger
It's
Corby.
like trying to say that Deckard is a replicant and not a replicant all at the same time. It doesn't work,
That's a good point. Yeah.
And the fact that you're. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jonathan. Please.
Yeah. So I mean, that was Picard. I wanted to like it. I agree with Scott. I've always wanted to move, and they set up such an interesting premise. One of the only interesting things to come out of 2009 was they destroy the Romulan homeworld, right? Which immediately gives you this huge galactic refugee situation, which if you're making science fiction in the 2010s, there's pretty obvious parallels you can draw there and pretty obvious allegories and everything you can do, right? And the nature of empire and what is all that, and all that. And they didn't do any of it. Like there was no point for the Borg. There was no point for the Romulans. It just ended up being this weird, like, I love Data sort of thing. It was very odd. There was like, I think I wrote this. There was like 13 too many subplots. They just needed to streamline it. Just have it like, if it's about Data's daughters or whatever, just that's it. That's your whole story. And I think I compared it to like the Marvel Netflix shows, which the first season of all those shows are very streamlined in terms of like plots and characters and everything. Then in the later season, like Daredevil, the third season has 50 characters, whatever, but you have to get there. You have to start off with the three of them, Daredevil, Foggy, and Karen. You have to start off there. So I think they needed to do that. They assumed that the audience knew everything about Picard, which I think was a mistake. I mean, I know everything about Picard, but they could have used a little bit more exposition. Again, that's where the Irish people would have come in great, because they could have done all that for us. But anyway, that's
personal log, or even a personal log. And it was so weird reading Michael Chabon's problems with Star Trek or differences with Star Trek, that he doesn't like captain's logs. He's obsessed with Spock smiling in the cage. But as far as Picard goes, I agree pretty much with you, John, in terms of I really enjoyed the first episode, and then it just fell away. And honestly, I think not only did they botch the ending, Larry, I thought they botched most of the series, because they started off in certain directions, decided to change course. I know that there was a lot of passing the show on to other producers and stuff, but it seems like they stuck with too much things that they had already filmed, tried to course correct within the story, within the shooting of the later episodes, and it just doesn't all fit. And John, I agree with you. Too many plots. Let's just streamline it. It drove me nuts that something as big, literally, as a Borg cube in Romulan hands, and it took us 6 or 7 episodes before finally we knew, from a galaxy standpoint, the politics of it, in terms of, does everybody know? Is it secret? What's going on? I mean, there are humans and Trills and Federation people working on this Romulan thing. What is the relationship with the Romulans and Starfleet and the Federation? It was never clear, and I think that was a really big mistake. And again, the end result was hokier than hell. Tentacles from a wormhole, and again, robot Picard. You mentioned Decker. That's another thing, and that's just a general thing about new CBS Star Trek. As we all know, growing up on Star Trek led science fiction, and other shows ape Star Trek. And really, this is the first era of Star Trek where I really feel they are heavily borrowing not only from other story ideas, film or TV ideas, but other science fiction. And I never felt in the past that Star Trek really had to do that. You'd have Run Silent, Run Deep comparisons with the first Romulan episode. Why is that name escaping me from original series? Balance of Terror. Thank you, John. Yeah, I mean, and then we know, all right, that's a submarine thing. Okay, fine. Things like that. But I mean, again, like you say, yeah, Picard is a robot. What?
Well,
What?
there's a really interesting thematic thing with the CBS All Access shows that they don't. It just seems like they don't know what's going on. They don't know what they're trying to do. They
don't know what they're trying to do.
There's no main character, and we don't know what they want. Now, the original series, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy are one to be or not to be. That is the question character. And they start every episode with the greatest statement of intent in television history. So you don't even have to say what they want because it's right there. Strange New Worlds, New Life, and New Civilizations. But when they started Discovery, they didn't know what they were doing so badly that on episode 3, they had a second pilot. It's like, here's two things that don't really matter, that everything that happens you can do in a bit of dialogue in episode 3 and just start the show. And then the same thing happened thematically. Like, I love change in format. Like, Fringe is one of the best TV shows ever. It was a different show every season, and it all worked. But it was all predicated. The first season is predicated on you knowing what the mirror universe is. So how does that get new fans, which was their whole thing?
Yeah.
And it's like you say, you need to know who Picard is to understand Picard. Well, people probably know the Sexiest Man Alive from 1989 TV Guide, but you might not know the character, right? So, like, it just seems like there's a lot of assumptions that everybody knows Star Trek, but they kind of don't. And they write to something where stuff happens. And that's crazy. I want all that money they spent on the first 2 seasons of Discovery. And, do some real Star Trek. And I'm hiring you to, all 4 of us will do that show.
You bring up the money, though, because it's such a waste. Just visually, I mean, all the shows are gorgeous. I mean, they're like watching movies every week, right? But if it's not like a good story, or not even that, I know there are people who like them and whatever, but it just seems like it's a huge waste of money. Like, it's a waste of everybody's talents. You know what I mean? Like, they're putting so much effort into this one part, and they're just kind of failing on the other 7 parts. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you think this is for new people or for fans?
I mean, ostensibly it's for new people, but they're not really getting new people. So,
well, it's you guys mentioned the mirror universe in the first season of Discovery, and when I was talking to John the other day, I went back to Discovery after I watched Picard, and I was really, 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 really happy with that first episode of Picard. I don't think you could have started that series out in a better way. But I got interested again. And so I started going back and I started looking, and I felt that Discovery really stumbled. But one of the things with that first season was I kept looking at Jason Isaacs' character, and I kept thinking, God, there's something wrong with this guy. There's just something wrong with this guy. And then when they reveal he's from the mirror universe, I was like, oh my God, of course he is. And I feel that so far New Trek is not for new fans. It's for people like us who know this stuff. But they're also stumbling too, because they're trying to make it fresh and they're trying to make it modern. And so they're having people swear and everything looks like Star Wars and all this stuff. And they're finding themselves having to pull away from that and to make it more like the old Trek. So it's like, I feel that they're course correcting as it goes on. They're trying to fix it because they're listening to it.
They're definitely doing that. Yeah.
And so I can't complain about that. If they're making a show for us and they're listening to what we're saying and they're changing it because of what we're saying, what's to complain about? It's like, are we going to be happy if they change it, or are we going to be unhappy if they don't change it? Which is which? But I really don't think there's anything for any new fans here at all. And I think that Prodigy show will be the show for new fans because it's that kids show that's going on Nickelodeon. But so far, Lower Decks for sure is not for any new fan.
That show isn't. I agree with that. I do think that Discovery was an attempt to get new fans. Go ahead, Larry.
Oh, I'm not sure I agree with that, just because my kid's 13 and he loves the original series, and he just does not care about anything after Kirk and Spock and McCoy. He kind of doesn't even like the movies because he's been raised on action movies and the Marvel stuff, and Star Trek's just like, some thing that my dad likes, but the original series he really responds to. So we started watching Lower Decks together, and his mind was blown. He was like, okay, this is for me because it's not your regular Star Trek. And Scott brought up the swearing. Like, I don't have a problem with the swearing in the live action stuff, except for the fact that nobody knows how to fucking swear.
Yeah, it doesn't feel natural.
Like, well, that's fucking interesting. It's like, no, nobody talks like that.
Well,
so they don't know how to write. I refuse to believe the actors don't know how to swear, because actors are passionate people, but so it has to be the writing. And they do that in Lower Decks. They bleep it out, but you still get the idea that, oh, these guys know how to swear. And that's what would happen if you slept in a hallway and rolled your uniform sleeves up. And I don't know. I love Lower Decks. I think it's amazing. And just anecdotally, they got a new fan with my kids. So I don't know if that's working.
Well, but he was indoctrinated by the original series.
Well, yeah, indoctrinated. I don't know.
Big word, but you know what I mean.
He got a Horgon for Christmas, so you know. maybe it's too light a word.
Have I told all you guys my only Christmas decoration in my house? I bought the Hallmark Star Trek ornament of the death of Spock.
Oh,
and it's them, separated by the glass.
That's a very holiday thing, though.
I know. Well, Spock died for our sins.
Yourself.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. So, but that's how much I love Star Trek.
How do you say no? Yeah.
And I saw that being advertised the year it came out. I'm like, I have to get this. That's the only one I have. But I don't know, man. We can talk about Lower Decks. I liked three of the episodes. I appreciated the intent of mirroring the Next Generation era. Again, from a design standpoint, they totally nailed it. I didn't think it was very funny. I hate Mariner. I think Mariner is the most obnoxious lead character, and that's impressive because I hate her more than I hate Michael Burnham. And I really
this is a big statement here.
And I want it clear because truly, Benjamin Sisko is Deep Space Nine's my favorite show. I love Benjamin Sisko. I liked Voyager a lot. So it has nothing to do with people of color being led or women being led. I want that very clear. I don't want to be mistaken as a Q, and I don't mean John Delancey when I say Q.
I'm saying you have to say that nowadays. It's like you can't just not like a character.
I get it.
You have to anticipate that criticism. Yeah.
I do get it, and I don't. And certainly, like I said, I don't want to misconstrue it. All that said, I think Mariner is an asshole. I think she is Sergeant Bilko for the Star Trek people, and Larry will know the reference. I assume Scott and John might know the reference. Much like Mariner, Phil Silver's character and Steve Martin's character in the film, Sergeant Bilko, they're in the army. They're in the army to coast. They don't want to be promoted. They don't want a nice admiral, captaincy or whatever, or colonel or whatever. They just want to coast and not have to work that hard.
Have you seen the last one, though? The last episode of Lower Decks? Sure you don't think that changed her entire thing? Where
we'll see.
Her mom. I just really informed the earlier episodes to me.
We'll see, but I really did. I found
I'm making a list of things you hate. So you hate women, people of color. You're ageist. You just took a shot.
Yes, I'm ageist. Yes,
cartoons.
Yeah. No, honestly, I wanted to like Lower Decks. I was excited by the idea that a Rick and Morty writer was going to have fun with Star Trek. I don't think the humor made it. I think much like a lot of Picard's success and Discovery's success, they rely on what South Park calls the member berries. And the jokes in Lower Decks a lot of times were, wow, I never saw anything like that since Captain Sulu was around. And it's kind of to me like, okay, that's what's familiar, but that's not a joke. That's to me, that's almost like Seinfeld saying, hey, remember when soda pop cans had the ring and the pop top and everything, and the ring would come off on your finger? And we'd all say yes. And then he'd go, so the other day I bought a house, and it suddenly changed the subject. It's like, wait a minute, isn't there like a joke? That was the setup. Where's the joke? And that's the thing with a lot of the Lower Decks humor. That or everything is said really fast and really loud. And it's like, again, that's delivery. Got to be a joke in there somewhere. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. It's like, all right, Boimler, shut up. You know what I mean? They're all really. I liked Rutherford and Tendi more than I liked Mariner and Boimler. And if I wish the show would really focus on those two, because they're to me much more reasonable characters.
You're making me sad now. Shax died. Like I wanted to see a whole show about that guy. Just blowing stuff up.
His that
He got what
picture
he
on
wanted.
the picture on his casket with that one bloodshot eye like ready to pop out of his head. That did make me laugh. That's why I liked the last episode. I liked, was it the second or third episode where Mariner and the first officer are in the cave and the aliens.
Third episode.
Right.
Third. Okay, I like that episode. And I can't remember which middle episode. I was like, all right, it's all right.
You didn't like the movies episode, John?
No, because again, Mariner's therapy and killing everybody. I'm like, okay, yeah, boy, this is really funny.
Tough crowd.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I mean, I liked some of the jokes. I liked them approaching the Cerritos and very majestically, and the engineer bursting into tears and like that stuff. I thought that was cute. But no, the characterization in the movie episode, again, she's an asshole. She's a big asshole. Don't like her.
I hate cartoons as a rule. I like Speed Racer and Space Ghost, and then it's a short list after that.
Okay.
So the whole it's Rick and Morty. I'm like, who cares? Like everything I read about that in advance made me hate it. And I watched the first episode with my mouth open because I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that I wanted this. And I don't know if you saw my Facebook today, but I got, my birthday was yesterday. That's why I'm a little twitchy about that ageist thing because I'm 57 now.
I'm right behind you.
I watched
56 is his
Sergeant
number.
Sergeant Bilko on network, so I know. But I got
no more hopping galaxies for you, buddy.
Yeah. But I got a Lower Decks uniform. That's how much that.
Wow.
So yeah, there you go.
It's got to go down. It drives me nuts.
What
the arrowhead? The arrowhead. Yeah.
Oh, that. Yeah, that's
far
insane.
Up. It's ridiculous.
We could talk for an hour about that. All the graphics.
Yeah. So I love Mariner.
Really?
Yeah, I think she's
All
great. I want to be a cartoon so I can have a cartoon marriage with her. I'm really yeah.
John Price in the holodeck with Mariner.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say. Yeah.
Really? All right.
No, it's a great. I really liked it.
Did you think it was funny?
I think to your point though, they went too hard the first episode. I think it was turned up to 11. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, I just kind of thought that was the tone of the series.
Walker's off camera. He agrees.
But I did like that they went back to that idea that Michael Piller brought to the Next Generation and having the A plot, the planet problem of the week, but also focusing on the characters as well in the B plots. And I did think that was good. I mean, that's why, again, I think it's the best, and this sounds like a backhanded compliment, given that I haven't liked anything of the CBS produced Star Trek, but it is the best. To me, it is the best of the three shows, and I would love to see Mike McMahon get a live action show because it seems to me of all the showrunners, he gets it the most.
You know, I was thinking about that because you said that the other day, and I watched an interview with him. Right now, they're doing virtual TrekCon 2 on Seventh Rule, and so they interviewed Mike McMahon for like an hour. And after listening to him talk, I would never want him near a live action series because it's not his deal. It's just not him. And he likes the comedy stuff. Yeah, he understands the visuals and all of that, but he likes the comedy stuff, and he doesn't want to touch anything that he's uncomfortable with. And I don't think that he should have that.
I think if Lower Decks was a live action show, that would be everyone's favorite Star Trek ever. I really do. It's so tightly written. I mean, think about it. It's a half an hour show, and it has an A and B plot. Like, that's amazing right there. And John Swente's criticism is it moves too fast. It's like, can you think about how well your writing has to be structured that a 23-minute thing like moves too fast with three? That's pretty impressive. It all makes sense. I don't know. I think it's funnier than you guys do. But,
I think it's hilarious. I love it.
Yeah. But I don't know. I haven't seen anything of Mike McMahon talking. I just see his name come up in that font, and I'm like, well, that's a Star Trek guy. Mm-hmm. It's not like I'm afraid when I see Alex Kurtzman in some, $200 font that they spent. I don't know.
$200.
I don't know.
I'm worried too because there was a Kurtzman article about how he's got Star Trek mapped out to 2027.
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh, please get other producers in there, please, because I the other thing I would say overall, and Lower Decks thankfully was more episodic. I don't think the writers they've assembled know how to write a one-season story.
No,
and that's a big problem. And when you only have one story, it's easier to attack because
that's it exactly. You lose viewers if you don't care about that story. There's no reason to watch episodes. So it'd be different if they did the whole season at once, because then they wouldn't really know where people started bailing out to be like, it was between episode 3 and 4 and 5, and it would be harder to course correct and blame that. You might just think it's regular audience attrition,
but they are still like shooting it in a traditional fashion. I don't imagine that they're, you know what I mean? So like,
sure, yeah.
You know, and maybe the warts wouldn't show as much if they threw it at a season at a time.
I'm curious of something. So John, you're not happy with CBS Star Trek at all?
Not really.
No.
And you at any point,
you almost got me on that one, Scott.
Tempted to just not watch it?
Sorry? I'm sorry? What was the
Are
question?
you tempted to just not watch it? I mean,
No.
are you like...
No, because I remain optimistic that I will either accept the parameters that they've established for each show and then accept it on its own merit. And sorry, I've been watching Star Trek literally for 50 years. Yeah. 50 years. And I mean, like, since I was 4 or 5. Yeah. And like I said, my only Christmas decoration is a Star Trek ornament. It's not my religion, but it is as I could be an old lady, it is my stories. And I can't go without my stories. Even when they suck, I blew off West Wing to watch Voyager. That's how much I love Star Trek. And I've since found West Wing. It's one of the greatest shows of the 2000s. But that said, I'm like, no, I don't care. It's on against Star Trek. And for me, a third of Voyager was great, a third of Voyager was average, and a third of Voyager sucked. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I really know. I mean, and again, I understand why must I leave Star Trek when for 6 different shows, even though I haven't liked every episode, there's been enough there for me to stay a Star Trek fan. So I won't abandon Star Trek. No, I'll keep hoping that they'll hit the right mix that I will enjoy.
Scott, I don't know if you get this at all, but I know Price does as well as I do. That whenever we have criticisms, some fans just go, "Well, you guys are haters," and that drives me bananas because
I'm not a hater.
The reason we have these criticisms is because we're Star Trek lovers, and so that's why when I hear somebody go, "Just don't watch it," it's like, no, you don't understand. This is the only constant in my life. It's like the world can go crazy, but I can watch a Star Trek. And
that's actually not why I asked the question.
No.
And the reason, right. But I understand that because there is, the internet just loves to hate on everything right now.
Right.
No matter what it is, you can't win. But I was thinking about it earlier today. And I'm watching Lower Decks. I watched Discovery the other day, and I'm going back and I'm rewatching Picard. And the show I can't go back to rewatch, the show I abandoned, was Enterprise. And it wasn't because I hated it, and it wasn't because I loved, I didn't love it and I didn't hate it. I got bored with it. And then I just walked away. And I don't feel that way with these new shows. If I think the worst thing you can do as a producer of a TV show is to make something that people do not have any emotional reaction to. And sometimes the emotional reaction is hatred, and sometimes it's you're the best. But I think the worst thing is if you're just bored.
Indifference.
I'm just going to turn it off.
Yeah. That happened to me with Doctor Who. I mean, the Smallville was like that for me, where I got bored with it. And Gotham. I would watch the first episode of the new season and the last episode of the new season. And I kept doing that for the last couple of years of Gotham. I did it with Smallville up until the final season. And That happened to me with Doctor Who. I really wanted. I like Jodie. I forget her name right now. Whittaker. Thank you. I was happy when she was cast, and I'm like, oh wow, this is going to be cool. A female Doctor. Honestly, I was excited, and I haven't cared for the writing. I think, and it's too many in the case. And we don't want to stray too far, but in the case of Doctor Who, too many companions. Four people and the Doctor. That just cuts the hour, and that gives the Doctor that much less to do, because you're also focusing on what the other companions are doing. And I just think that's kind of dumb. So anyway, but yeah, I became indifferent to Doctor Who, to support your argument, Scott.
That was Discovery season 2 for me. After those first that first episode where Pike came aboard, I was just like, I do not give a shit about any of this. Pure hatred of season 1 actually kept me interested. And season 2, I was like, yeah, I don't care. Goodbye. Like,
I watched Enterprise like that. I would like, and Smallville actually, that when there was something cool, oh, they're doing the JSA. Okay, I'll watch that episode. But I didn't feel like I needed to keep up with that show. And Enterprise was like that. I liked the first couple seasons enough, but I did get bored. And then when Manny Cotto started doing show running, I came back to it, and they did the Defiant and all that stuff. And then I was like, well, why weren't you doing the show the whole time? And I kind of feel like that about the end of the last episode of Discovery at the beginning of season 3, where the last 5 minutes, I was like, oh my God, where's this show been? I would have, I don't know. I got from not really enjoying it for 2 years to like kind of having a little Star Trek manly tear in the last 5 minutes. I was like, oh, please, they're bringing me back in. So maybe it's going to be good this year.
Maybe, but much like the first episode of Picard, I was intrigued. And then in my head, and forgive me, but in my head wrote a much better story than the one we got. And I'm worried about that. And I'm worried about that with Discovery, with season 3 of Discovery, because I think it's an intriguing question of what happened to the Federation. Let's try and put the Federation back together again. I think that all that's fascinating. Don't give a shit about the sea worms. And then the environmental aspect. We'll see what they do with that.
I think that was just a character trait for that episode, don't you? That like the rugged Han Solo guy got a chewy center and saved the worms.
Don't the worms? I don't know. Didn't the worms power his ship? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm gonna have to rewatch it. Okay, maybe I'm gonna have to rewatch it. Maybe I got confused. Man, again, I'm not a big fan of Michael Burnham. I loved the guy that was carrying the communications officer that was carrying the torch for Starfleet. I thought the last 10 minutes or 5 minutes was fantastic. And if that is the main thrust of Discovery season 3, it certainly seems to be, with Burnham holding the Federation flag and all that. And that's fine. I think that's an interesting intellectual puzzle to explore. I like the idea that the Orions and the Andorians are working together. And again, what happened? The Andorians were part of the Federation. They were one of the founding members of the Federation. So what turned them off or made them abandon the Federation's ways? Or are they rogue Andorians? At the Space Mall, we don't know.
Price, you got to tell your riff about how you hate Michael Burnham. And she has one character, her expression. Oh, that makes me cry laughing every time I read you write about that.
Well, she has like.
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
I'm so glad he said it.
I don't know if Sneeko Martin Green is a good actress or not. I have no idea. I've never seen her in anything. But if all I had was Discovery, I think she was like the worst actress of all time. She only has one expression, and it's like this overwrought like melodrama that's like it's like if someone told her like they were out of cornflakes, like she would be like
yes,
cornflakes, and it's like
anxiety, fear, nervous.
Like, yeah, dude, we get it. Like you can't play every scene like at a 10 because then it becomes meaningless. Like it's called acting, up, down,
and also isn't this
emotion,
and also like this is someone that was raised on Vulcan and is so Vulcan-y in her ways. Yeah. And it's like, I know Vulcans. I realize Vulcans actually have emotions. I get all that. But I just, and really, the end of the day, 2 seasons, point 1 into Discovery, I still don't know why she had to be Spock's sister.
That's the big thing is she's the main character, but they haven't done a good job of developing her as a character. So we still have questions about who she is, other than just a facade of emotions. Like, what is she as like? And it's an interesting idea. Like, this person raised on Vulcan turns out to be really emotional. That's an interesting idea, but they did it so ham-fisted and clumsy and everything that it just doesn't fit for me.
I'm still
anyway.
haunted by what they were doing with that Alice in Wonderland thing.
I don't know. They don't know what they were doing. Come on.
I'm just like, why is this in here? There's no payoff. I don't know.
Not true, though.
Because it was referenced once.
No, go ahead, Scott.
Right, in the cartoon.
Right. Well,
go ahead, Scott.
This first episode, she was totally Alice in Wonderland, because all of a sudden she was in this environment that she didn't know. They're shooting drugs into her face. She's laughing, and the camera's cutting. And that's exactly what I thought. She's Alice in Wonderland right now.
I also thought the Mirror Universe was Alice in Wonderland as well in the first season. Yeah. But that said, again, Spock's sister. You declare somebody's as Spock's sister and how big of a character Spock is to all of us and how much we love Spock. I think that's a massive mistake, and it was a easy cheat to intrigue us that never paid off because, as John said, I mean, really, at the end of the day, everything I hate about new Star Trek is ham-fisted writing. It's just dumb. It doesn't have a direction. Maybe now it will. That Discovery isn't trying to staple its continuity onto established continuity and saying, oh, no, this all really happened. And no, it fits fine. No, it doesn't fit fine. No, you're a kid smashing your puzzle piece in where it doesn't belong and saying, I'll make it fit. And it's like, yeah, you can't do that. And especially, I'm sorry, we've loved this for 50 years. There's been so many, television shows, novels, and films. I'm sorry, that's a big continuity beast that you've decided to tackle with new stories, and the writers they've assembled, I just don't think are up to the job.
You had that point about. I'm sorry. No, I was just going to say John's point about like that he had a better idea for how Picard should go. That's their main problem. That literally everyone who's watched Star Trek has a better idea of how Star Trek should go than the people working on it. It's nutty. That's nutty. I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to step on you.
No, go ahead, John.
Oh, I was just going to say that, like, if you don't have it, like, making it Spock actually screwed them because now they had to deal with all of our bullshit as on top of all of the writing. Like, so it's like, if you just give him a different name and, make it a different character, you just free yourself up to explore what is this new Vulcan like, That's
what I thought, and I've said this to Scott before. It would have been better to have Michael Burnham raised by other Vulcans, and then bring Sarek in, and have
contrast.
and have that other father go, "You raised a half-human son. What's that like? Oh, you raised a human woman to be Vulcan. What's that like?" Because to make it always about Sarek and Spock's family, to me, is like saying MLK was the only civil rights leader that mattered. And it's like, no, there was Malcolm X, there was Medgar Evers, there was, John Lewis, obviously. I mean, and there are these other people, and I don't believe making Sarek the only Vulcan that is willing to interact with humans and is intrigued by them. Yeah, I just think limits Vulcan and limits the galaxy.
And just as a writer, like, how boring is that? Like, you make your own stuff, man. Like,
I think they just weren't confident in their own ability to understand Star Trek because they felt like they needed that cheat.
I wonder if that was their idea or if that was the idea of CBS.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question.
And Scott, you're right. And I have a feeling a lot of what I don't like are likely network notes saying, no, we want this. I mean, my God, that's happened with almost every iteration of Star Trek. I remember the original plan for Enterprise, and you guys probably know it as well, that they wanted to be Earthbound that first year building the ship and explaining the galaxy politics of that era. And it would have been so much better. And Paramount's like, no, we want you in space right away. And it's like, all right, You know,
Well,
again,
I remember
Hey.
Akiva Goldsman specifically said that there would be no Spock. Like, it's like, yes,
Yeah.
she's related. We're not doing that. And then it was during season 1. So I think that's actually a really good point where it's like they probably just got kicked in the balls and be like, hey, no, Spock time. You know?
well, but also I think because they had a fractured audience. That,
they had a fan mutiny. Yeah.
Right. So it's all right. You're right. We did say Spock, so I guess we need to show him. And then go ahead, Scott.
Oh no, I was going to ask real quick. Did Discovery start after Star Trek Beyond came out?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it had something to do with
2017.
Yes, 17.
Yeah.
Why? What is the connection with Star Trek
Well,
Beyond?
it's Star Trek Beyond didn't do so well.
Right.
My recollection. And those movies started up here and then like steadily went down. And I wonder how much of that affected how they approached these new shows. Not necessarily Picard, but Discovery for sure.
Well, but also, Star Trek as a property became, there was that time, and it finally remerged, thank God, Paramount and CBS. But I believe that doing the Star Trek Discovery shows and stuff was a television initiative that didn't have anything to do with the movies, that they really were on two separate tracks. And even though J.J. Abrams had the option still, and they created Secret Hideout, the producers of current televised Star Trek, as a shell company of JJ's, I don't really know. I mean, obviously Kurtzman's in charge of it. I thought the 2009 movie I liked it fine. I mean, it wasn't it was fine. I liked it. Whatever. The second movie was horrible. I thought Star Trek Beyond was a little bit better than the second movie. But yeah, like you said, Scott, no, it absolutely underperformed. And I don't know. I think regardless, I really don't think Discovery had much to do with the movies. I got to be honest.
It's really obvious that Star Trek is not a 2-hour theatrical presentation. Like, even the movies that are good are so weird in terms of movies. Like, Star Trek 4 doesn't have a villain. I mean,
it's a romp. Yeah.
So, which is fine, but it's weird, right? You can't save the galaxy every time. And what people respond to in Star Trek is all the character moments.
Right.
They keep saying that, it has to be one Game of Thrones through line each season. It's like, no, like Kirk and Spock and McCoy giving each other shit, like, evolved over 3 seasons. That they're not connected, but everything had consequence. So I just don't understand where these guys all went off the rails. It's like, although Price and I were talking about season 5 of Next Gen, where every episode is amazing. It's like Hall of Fame.
The murderers row.
After another. Yeah. And it has nothing to do. It's just, it's not a connected story. It's just, they just hit a home run every time they were at the bat. And that's what's missing from the CBS stuff, if you ask me. It's
Randall, go ahead.
No, I was just going to end up saying, I don't look at it as individual episodes. I don't say, oh, this ever half Shakespearean nonsense titled episode that they don't understand why, like, I don't know. Who's great though is Alan McElroy. He's an awesome writer. And I wish they would let him just write the whole show. What has he been writing? Is the Discovery, he's done the only episodes that I like. I don't remember what they're called, of course, but it's by him, and he really has his finger on the pulse of what is good.
Well, describe the episodes that he did.
I don't remember.
Well, what the hell, Larry?
Because it's Star Trek, right? I just remember, McElroy. He worked on the Spawn cartoon. It's like I know his work. So
okay.
When his name came up, I was like, oh, that guy gets it. I guarantee you he was playing Kirk and Spock and McCoy in the recess yard when we were. That's funny. Because he gets it. Randall has a good question here. I've heard there's a possibility of reviving Deep Space Nine. How would each of you feel if All Access soon to be Paramount Plus revived Deep Space Nine? Sure. Only if Price was writing it, though. If Price was show running it, then that's cool.
If Price is show running it, it's not happening. So
you don't like DS9?
I like DS9. I don't trust anyone to write it. I don't trust CBS. That's what I mean. I don't trust CBS Trek to write it. I think it's too smart for them.
Have your contract just be no notes. No
Scott
notes.
and I saw I ran into each other literally when they showed the What We Left Behind documentary in theaters. And so I know, obviously Scott and I are fans. And I'll ask everybody, did you guys like that proposed 8th season first episode that the writer's room came up with?
What was it again? I can't remember. It was
oh my God, it was so great. It was like this big mystery of there's some sort of conspiracy going on. There's a religious sect of Bajoran.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And Cisco and Cassidy's kid has grown up and is in Starfleet, and Jake is there. Nog is a captain, gets killed in the first act.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it ends with Benjamin coming out of the wormhole, out of the wormhole, and he's suddenly back, and that's how it ends. And it's like, all right, now what's going to happen?
I'll tell you, it was a lot of fun just watching that. First of all, it's a great documentary. Second of all, just watching like Ira Stephen Bear and Ronald Moore, and whoever else was in the room.
Yeah.
Just doing it. It was just so much fun seeing them do it and be like, yeah, this would be cool,
Well, not to throw any fuel on that rumor fire, but I mentioned they're doing virtual Trek over on the Seventh Rule right now, and they're interviewing Rod Roddenberry. And he said something that nobody questioned him on. And what he said was that, he's talking to Sirach Lofton and the other guy. And he said, well, we're doing something and we're watching every single episode of Deep Space Nine. And now we're on to season 5. And so for whatever reason, they're watching the series there now from beginning to end. So my guess is that they will do something with it, which would be interesting.
Well, like you said, man, move the story forward.
Sure. I want to see the Cardassians.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I really want to see what happened there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, literally take the dictator nation beaten and what happens afterwards. 100%, all of that stuff. No, I agree. And same with Bajor and everything they set up in Deep Space Nine, I think would be fascinating. And as I've said before, and I'm sure we've all said this maybe to each other or even apart, half of what I dislike about Discovery, if they would have not put it in the past and put it in the future, would have made a lot more sense and would have alleviated a lot of people's frustrations in terms of, well, the Klingons wouldn't do that back then. They would maybe, I keep saying, if it were 100 years in the future and there was a Klingon sect that said, hey, Kalis wouldn't be chummy with human beings. We kind of lost our way. We need to get back to what we were. We need to be Klingon again. That makes sense.
And they were blue.
I don't know about the blue part. Or bald. Or bald and blue.
Well, that's the thing. It's so many unforced errors. I mean, 90% of my criticisms of that stuff goes away if it's in the future. Because, then you don't have to worry about that.
Right.
I would still have a problem with not knowing the bridge crew's name until season 2.
I still don't know.
Then the only character that I liked was Lady RoboCop. They finally gave her an episode like, what's it like being plugged into a starship? Holy shit, you never sleep. You're responsible for everything. Give that girl an episode, and then they kill her.
And then they kill her in the same episode. Yes. And then they spend twice as much time on her funeral as they did with Spock's funeral. Oh, and I love Tilly. I remember when Robot Girl and I were walking down the beach, and we talked about X, and we're all like, yeah, we didn't, because we didn't see it. What the hell are you telling me? I don't care about this character. You killed her off. Goodbye.
I wonder if that's a function of the whole, Beverly Hills 90210 resume that those writers had. That they weren't writing Star Trek. It was nonsense. I don't know.
Mike Coonrad says they had to cram in some canon to Disco to try and get us longtime Trek fans interested in why she was Spock's adopted sister. Yeah, I guess.
No, they have to do that.
No, I hear you, man. That's if.
Well, that's why I avoided it at first, because it was like another prequel.
Right.
And it's like I was telling John this the other day. I don't want to see that anymore. I don't want to see Kirk. I don't want to see Spock. I want to be in the future. Forget that stuff.
Well, if anything doesn't need a prequel, it's Star Trek, right? The whole thing's predicated on what is unknown and let's go see the new stuff. Like, just the concept of having Star Trek prequels like offends me. Like,
Did you
put it
guys
forward.
did you guys watch the New York Comic Con video when they kind of laid out? They gave us the big reveal that in Star Trek Prodigy, Janeway's going to be in it. But what's surprised, I don't know if you guys watched the video, but Kurtzman kept referring to her character as Captain Janeway and not Admiral Janeway.
Kirsten doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Well, John, it's very likely that that's the case, but it made me go, are we going to get it? Like, is this going to be pre-Nemesis, post-Voyager, end of Voyager, setting Prodigy then? Or is Admiral Janeway, was it like Kirk that she missed being out in the galaxies? So, she took a captaincy again? I don't really know.
That's going to be a weird one because it's a kid's show.
Yeah.
And if she wasn't going to be in it, I wouldn't have been interested in it at all. But because she's in it, I want to see at least what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I think that is for new viewers, I think. That's for new people coming in. So we'll see.
I guess. I have two friends that wrote on the first season. I don't know if I'm allowed to say yet or not to reveal that. But they were great. They, never let on that they were writing for, Admiral Janeway as well. I hope it's good, and I hope I'll be interested to see if it is a real adventure show. I would think it will be, and it won't be a wise ass show. Obviously, certainly not as blue as Lower Decks got. I wasn't offended by it, but I'm just saying, obviously not for Nickelodeon. We won't hear any bleeps on Nickelodeon, I would assume. And also, I imagine that it will also run on All Access as a streamer, because obviously the smart plan would be to have continuous Star Trek shows and not let too many weeks go where there isn't some Star Trek in between. I don't know.
I don't know, really, because I'm getting a little Star Trek'd out. It's not an event anymore. So, like, you guys are going, oh, Prodigy. I'm like, I don't care at all. I don't care about Janeway being on there. But that's probably my own bias. I don't care about cartoons. I'll check out the first one, and I might love it. Like,
what about the original animated Trek?
I loved it, but I was 10. I mean,
no, I understand. Larry, I mean, it's still a kid's show in a lot of ways. But
is it though? I mean,
I was going to say it actually had some intriguing ideas.
That's how I got into Star Trek. Honestly, I saw the cartoon and I was like, this is blowing my mind. And one of my dad's friends was like, that's a real show with real guys. And I was like, what?
Wow.
And so, and then I watched it religiously. So,
that's
but
funny.
when you revisit those animated ones, I mean, they address things very straightforward. It doesn't read like a kid's show at all. And I love that it's Star Trek's first Emmy was from that show.
That's right. Lou Scheimer, before he passed away, the guy in charge of Filmation, I saw, now I'm blanking on his name. He's a comic book writer, Andy Mangels interviewed him on stage in San Diego. And it was great because Scheimer's like, as far as I was concerned, I was doing the fourth season of Star Trek. Animated or live action, who cares? I was doing Star Trek, and they wrote they hired good writers, and it was that weird limited animation that Filmation always does. But no, I think they were really smart stories, and
look at that. It was like David Gerald and DC Fontana and Theodore Sturgeon and
Samuel Peoples,
Samuel Peoples. Like, where is that in Discovery? Like,
that's what I'm saying, man. They get these people that they clearly don't understand science fiction. There are so many dumb things that they do, like that stupid the sonic screwdriver of Picard, where it's a great tool. All you have to do is think about it, and it'll do whatever you want it to do. Oh, is it called Deus Machina? Thank you. I mean, it's like, come on, are you that lazy that you can't think of something better? And like I said, there were just so many times of the premises they laid out in Picard. There's I want to say it was called Pop Culture, a YouTube thing. And they had this fantastic half-hour theory of where Star Trek Picard was going to go. And it was 100 times better than what we got in that season. And and again, same thing. It's like when we saw that first episode, wow, it could go here, it could go there, whatever, and all these great conversations. And then it was like, it was nothing. It was dumb.
They didn't follow any strand that they set up. Like Price was saying about the Romulan ninjas that are like just grape growers now. That you can do a whole show on those guys.
Yep.
And the drug girl, I forget her name, who lives at Vasquez Rocks, the Picard.
Oh yeah, Raffi.
Yeah. A whole show on that, like a drug user in the Federation. That's amazing, but that's a darker show.
I mean, I guess we'll see about what happens in season 2. I'm sorry, Larry, but I was going to say, all right, she's got her estranged son and his Romulan wife, and it's like
spend 10 seconds on, like, wait, what? I don't know that whole thing.
And also to start with, I always get his name wrong. Romulan Hobbit warrior, elf warrior.
Yeah,
with the sword
guy.
Yeah, but like, all right, clearly they were going to set up a father-son thing with him and Patrick Stewart, and somebody in the writers' room is like, it'd be better if he did a father-daughter thing because that's less explored. And it's like, oh yeah, you're right. Sorry, never mind, Nestor or whatever the hell your name is. We're going to stick with Picard and Soji. And man, I'll tell you, I don't think Soji's that great of an actress. She's an okay singer, I guess. But, I heard her version of Blue Skies. And also just the whole thing with Data. Let's bring Data back alive to kill him again. And it's like, what? I mean, I was expecting Data, and again, this is me writing a better story, to, if anything, bring Data back and bring him in a younger body. So another actor could play Data and play a younger Data. And that way Data could come back, but not. But I liked Brent Spiner coming back as a Sun that we didn't know about, and maybe we'll see him continue in the next season. I don't know, but it just
those episodes though,
Yeah, no, you're right.
I had that idea about Picard. If you're going to kill Picard, and bring him back. So have season 2 be a 12-year-old boy, and have Patrick Stewart do the voiceovers in his brain or something. It's like, do some science fiction. Just like,
exactly,
a robot that looks exactly the same, and he's going to die when Patrick Stewart does.
Or what happened? I know that most of the Borg that were on the cube got sucked out, but obviously there were survivors on the cube when it crashed onto the robot planet, and it's like, so where are they exactly? So it was just evil Romulan and evil Romulan's sister and 7 of 9. They're the only people that made it back on the cube. Again, it's like there was just basic, or all of a sudden 7 and Raffi are holding hands at the end of the last episode of Picard. It's like, where the hell did that come from? I'm sorry, I'm confused. It's like, all right, I'm not against it.
I love the fan reaction to that because everybody's like, "Oh, lesbians." I'm like, no, it was 2 people holding hands. Like,
whatever.
If we went through this giant thing, I'd put my hand on Price and go, pass the scotch, man. Does that mean we're lovers? No, I don't know. But like, and they have everybody go, oh, well, threw that in. It's like, well, you're doing everybody a disservice then. If you're just throwing it in at the last second, that's a cool little bit of actor business. But like, that's supposed to be going for, I don't know. Those guys don't know what they're doing. It's insane.
What they should have done was they should have brought Chakotay back, since he was dating 7 of 9 in the last episode of Voyager. Where was he all of a sudden?
Yeah.
That was a joke. I don't want to see him.
Aw.
Sorry, Robert Beltran. I was going to say I liked how in Lower Decks, I felt they had a line in Lower Decks in that last episode, which, by the way, again, I thought the cold open going back to the Landru planet was hilarious. But the conversation that Mariner has with her mom, and the captain is like, God, I can't believe Starfleet, they don't really follow up very well with planets that they've, done whatever. And Mariner says something like, yeah, you can't expect, I forget what she said, but something to the effect of, you can't expect them to carry on the same way that they have all, whatever, that I think allowed for the political change in Starfleet, in that, we don't help everybody anymore. I felt that was, and again, I thought that was so antithetical to Starfleet and the basics of Star Trek. But then again, I also love Deep Space Nine, and Majel Roddenberry be the first one to tell you, Gene wouldn't have liked Deep Space Nine. And it's like, well, that's a shame because that's probably my favorite spinoff. Even better than Next Generation, in my opinion. But
did you see that documentary about the Next Generation that Shatner? That was really interesting. And
Chaos on the Bridge for people
Right.
listening and don't know what we're talking about. Yeah, that's a great documentary.
And just
Did
the
you guys
idea
all
that
see it?
Gene
Larry, did you see it?
Roddenberry was all
Yeah,
over-
I did. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
Yeah.
John saw it, yeah.
But just the idea that Roddenberry was all over the place too on his own rules, I thought was very, very, very interesting.
Well, he was, again, he was a flawed man, to say the least. I mean, he was drugging it up and boozing it up still. And I think, like they said in the documentary, probably at that age, the last thing he wanted to do was have to run a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, shit, they said yes. And now I actually have to do this. All right, give me $50 million. I still want to own the thing, and I expect to run everything. Okay, sounds good, Gene.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. All right.
One of the things I like is that as we're talking about lower decks, we don't have any trouble saying it's Mariner and Boimler and Tandy and Rutherford. Like, I can't do that with Next Generation. I mean, with Discovery or Picard. I don't remember anybody's names.
Well, I think part of the hard thing with New Trek is none of the names are pronounceable.
It's true.
And it's like, was it Tilly and Saru and
Culver and Stamets.
the robot lady?
Robot lady.
Who else there?
Larry's
the doctor.
to Larry's point of the bridge crew, and I'm sure I've said this before to you guys in private conversation, but one of my buddies that runs an East Coast convention, and he talks to celebrity wranglers about who he could get in his price, budget or whatever, and he's like, "Hey, you want the bridge crew from Discovery?" And the guy's like, "Yeah." He's like who? The people on the bridge. And he's like, I'm a massive Star Trek fan, and I've been watching new Star Trek. I don't know who those people are. Oh, they're really popular. He goes, I don't know with who, because I don't know their names, and I bet most Star Trek fans. And you're right. It's as I was telling Scott the other night. It's Eyepiece Lady, it's Lady with the dreadlocks,
Nice.
It's Asian guy, it's the black gentleman, and Saru.
Yep. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well,
New Odo is what I call him.
Oh, is that Saru's new Odo?
Yes.
I don't mind Saru. I can't make up my mind as a character because I appreciate the way he's described, and I really love Doug Jones. I think Doug Jones is pretty awesome in everything he does, but something's missing, and I don't quite buy him being this endangered species that's hunted on his planet, and yet he's a commander. I don't know. It's almost incongruent to me that someone that was raised that way could be a commander and possible captain.
They don't know what they're doing. They raise that guy, and he's a cow, right? He would say, moo, he's out, he's food.
Yes.
And 2 episodes later, he's flying a shuttlecraft. Like, I'm sorry, that doesn't work. You've set up this agricultural, alien race who doesn't even believe that there's anything off their planet, much less maybe outside of their village. And then he's just like, oh, phasers on stun. Like, wait, what? Where did that come from?
Well, that was a flashback, right? When they went back to show his.
I believe it was, but it wasn't like he didn't have years of training. It was like he just got into a ship and flew away because he saw lights and he thought something else. I was like, what? I don't know.
Then Georgiou showed up.
Yeah.
And
breaking the Prime Directive in 7 ways.
Well, that's enough. I mean, good Lord. Yeah. The other thing too is I also just hate Mir Giorgio being brought back from the Mirror Universe by Starfleet. And I'm like, no, I don't buy that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh no, we're going to make she's going to be fake Giorgio captain and she'll work with us. And it's like, no. Bullshit. No. She eats Saru. She eats the cows. It's like, what? Yeah, we're going to let her have a ship and whatever.
That's the thing about that character too. The thing that made him interesting is that he had spider sense. Like, here's some, they evolved danger, being aware of danger, And then the first thing they did was cut those things out of his ears, and now he's the captain? What? Come on.
Well, I think part of the problem with this is, you have these accelerated seasons of one story. And so you don't get to grow these characters. They're just kind of thrown out there at you. And it's like 10 episodes and we're in and we're out. And, I don't know if that's a great solution for anything, but that's kind of how TV is now in general. And they're just kind of following that same thing, unless you're like a CW show in which the stories go on and on and on and on.
Yeah, but there's a problem of the week, even on a season-long arc.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it doesn't have to be that way. There are things like Law and Order that are still procedurals that don't have season-long arcs, and it's the problem of the week. They made a choice. They decided, well, this is cool TV now. We're going to be cool TV. The one problem is they hired writers that aren't up to the task. And again, I would say that after 2 seasons of this full seasons of Discovery, 1 full season of Picard, and the contrast of Lower Decks, to say, yeah, maybe. And again, like you said, Scott, they do seem to be listening. They move at a glacial pace when it comes to listening to the fans, because we were screaming this shit in season 1 of Discovery. And finally, after season 2 of Discovery, and everybody, for the most part, liking the characterization of Christopher Pike, and us saying, you don't do this well, please go back to separate stories. We're going to go back to separate stories with Pike, and it'll be a problem of the week, and more traditional Star Trek. Oh, really? Good idea. Gee, I wonder where you came up with that. I'm sorry. They're just stupid.
I just don't get how this even is a problem that we're still talking about. Because I don't know if you guys seen Ted Lasso, but that was a 10-episode thing that it was just brilliant from beginning to end. Like, if I was working on a TV show, I'd just give up on the Emmys this year, because that show's getting every single one in every category.
Tell me about Ted Lasso.
It's an Apple TV show starring Jason Sudeikis, about an American football coach that's brought to England to coach a soccer team. And it starts out kind of like
oh my God, I'm going to have to watch it.
Oh my God.
That's great.
It's the best show. It's better than Lower Decks.
I have Apple TV. Well, and I'll tell you, and I'm sure and Larry, I'm sure you feel the same way, being the astronaut nut that you are. But I think I loved For All Mankind.
Oh my God, yes. Well, plus just the alt history thing alone. But then alt history of Russian landing on the moon. Oh, I can't even tell you. You'd have to beep out how I feel about that show.
Very in a good way or a bad way?
Yes, in a good way. It's very
yeah. Oh my God! And I haven't watched. I was just wiped out from planning Baltimore Comic-Con, as I've been trying to help do for the last few weeks. Last weekend, I meant to watch the first 2 episodes of The Right Stuff on Nat Geo on Disney, yeah. And what I watched, I really loved. But I have to admit, I fell asleep during the first episode because I was just beat. So I don't know if you've watched Right Stuff yet.
I haven't seen that. We're on the morning show right now because we got Apple TV for All Mankind and then watched Ted Lasso. And so we're on that now. And oh my God, I love Aaron Sorkin. You brought up West Wing, and I loved his show, The Newsroom. I mean, my Astronauts in Trouble thing is about news guys in space. So I'm in the tank for that kind of stuff. And it's, Jennifer Aniston is in it, and it's just, she doesn't get a lot of credit for being the good actress that she is, but she's anchoring that show. It's amazing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, coming from broadcasting, I'll be watching it.
Oh, you're going to find it really, anybody who has just, it looks like a workplace thing, but they're addressing all kinds of cool stuff. It's great.
That's awesome.
But everybody in spacesuits, and it'd be my favorite show. But
and I have to admit, I haven't watched, and I know isn't season 5 coming up of The Expanse?
Yes.
And shame on me, man, because I hear nothing but amazing things about The Expanse.
It's amazing. Yeah.
I got to catch up on that.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I hate Discovery so much, because it's like The Expanse is so good, and it's like this little shit show, that they made on, what was it, fucking Sci-Fi Channel?
Yeah.
What the fuck? Like, anyway.
No, you're right. Well, and also, in fairness, there's no preconceived notions. So we're accepting. I mean, I know the novels exist, but we are accepting of whatever they lay out on us because they're not fighting 50 years or trying to work with 50 years of continuity. So I can appreciate that.
Okay.
But also, I hear it. No, I hear it's great that it's dealing with real politics between the Expanse itself and Earth and Mars, and it's high-minded.
And they try to do science like fucking Star Trek. Do science fiction. This isn't hard. Sorry.
No, do your day, man. Be candid. It's all right. I mean, again, that is my complaint about new Star Trek on CBS. They play it Star Trek. They don't really do it well. And again, they don't do the season-long stuff and everything.
Yeah.
And here Wayne says Discovery could take cues from The Expanse to tell an overall season story.
Yes. Yeah. Discovery could take cues from literally every show on how to write a story.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's literally one of the worst streaming shows, just as a story.
And isn't that a shame?
It's awful. It makes me cry.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I know it's funny. Larry, didn't you mention was it not Degrassi? I forget what you mentioned. Another teen show. That was the thing about that first. Was it the first season of Discovery?
Yeah, 90210.
Yeah, 90210.
Yeah, the showrunners really came from that. The update. So it's you couldn't have a more.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
well, like I said, I mean, when Ash Tyler killed Dr. Culver, and then is discovered as having that happen, and he's Burnham wants nothing to do with him and has ostracized him, and he goes to the mess hall, and all of a sudden Tilly and all the other, it's look, you killed our best friend, but you didn't mean it, so you can eat lunch with us. It's okay.
Everyone and I'm literally went back to their lunch.
Yes. Yeah. And then he sat down, and it's yeah, come on. Hey, Manson, sit down with us, Manson. It's all right. You can eat lunch with us. It's cool. You eat at the cool table. I'm what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
Bad writing.
I know.
Can't help it.
Right.
I hate
that show so much.
Now, another thing I wanted to, if you guys, I hope you guys aren't bored because I do have a couple other things I want to talk about.
I need just a palate cleanser from how much that early Star Trek is just awful.
Well, let me wrestle with this with you guys because they had Star Trek Day on September 8th, and they had that poster for it, and man, they really don't want William Shatner associated with Star Trek anymore, do they? It's so, I think it is so blatantly obvious that they just don't give a shit about him. And then sadly, because of who he was, they're trying to minimize Captain Kirk. And it's I'm really sorry, kids, but we got news for you. The reason why this franchise has lasted for 50 years is because of the original series and that character. You may not like the actor, but that is one of the great 20th century characters that we all fell in love with.
It's like doing Gotham, though. I never watched Gotham because it's I don't care what happened before Batman shows up in Gotham. And that's that. You're trying to get Captain Kirk out of Star Trek?
What? I don't mind a prequel. I mean, that's the thing. I don't mind if it's well done. And the idea of Captain Pike in general always intrigued me. Luckily, they got some. I mean, Jeffrey Hunter is obviously wooden as hell in The Cage and The Menagerie, which ironically was on MeTV tonight before we were talking. They showed part 1 of The Menagerie. But I like the way that he's a burnt out captain and kind of I don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life right now. And also just the idea that there was a captain before Kirk intrigued me. But to do what the current regime behind Star Trek is doing, and that stupid poster, I actually meant to upload it so we could look at it. And everybody's there's Burnham, there's Spock, there's Sulu. And there's Captain Kirk way in the background. I don't know if you can see him, but he's smaller than Captain Pike. And it's come on, screw you. Give me a break. It's goddamn James T. Kirk.
That was obviously a piece of artwork that was done by committee, though, because you kind of accept it with movie posters because that's contractual. Here's the star, here's the second lead, here's a guy below the title. You kind of accept that. But to do that without having it make sense, Sulu was huge in the upper right. It's the second place your eye goes. And you're
because
maybe they're trying to do something look how diverse.
I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to bring it up in a tab. I can show you.
Was that for Star Trek Day or was that for in New York Comic Con.
Oh, it's for Star Trek Day.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
remember.
maybe it was because George Takei was actually there. He was interviewed by Will Wheaton.
Right, and why wasn't William Shatner there?
Shatner must have really done something. You know, he must have really done something, and they must, because I've often wondered, how does he feel sitting there watching Patrick Stewart being carted back out, and everybody being like, "Yay, he's back!" And Shatner's wanted to get back into Star Trek since Generations. He wrote all those books, or someone ghost wrote those books for him. But it was he's just wanted to go back so bad. And for whatever reason, they don't want him. And they didn't want him then, and they don't want him now.
That's pretty obvious, man. I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
Where the hell is it?
Yeah, I'd love to know what Shatner did.
There we go. So yeah, Sulu
That's
Spock right there. Nice big giant Picard. Nice big giant Burnham. There's Captain Pike. Oh, there's Captain Kirk right down there. Jesus. I mean, that's just stupid to me. And I loved how Shatner on Twitter, photoshopped himself out. He goes, "Here, I fixed it for you." So I don't know, man. I don't know, but I again, it just and also the panel they had for Star Trek Day, it was moderated by Will Wheaton, and they had George Takei on it, and both of them hate Shatner, and I understand that. And I understand their frustrations with Shatner. But, the guy, he's 90 or 91 now, and a day will come that he will no longer be with us. And I'm sure then they'll be very reverent towards him and everything. But it really disappoints me that, again, it's like he is the cornerstone of Star Trek, and you can't deny that. That fantastic documentary they made with him about how William Shatner invented the universe or whatever, and it was all about the real science that was inspired by Star Trek, and he was the narrator, and he's like, "And it's all because of me."
I don't think they view it that way anymore. I think they put Spock in that position, or Nimoy rather. I don't think they put Shatner in that spot anymore.
I agree.
They're wrong, but yeah.
Well, and I get it, and God bless Leonard Nimoy, he was wonderful. But it's much like Discovery. It is a rewriting of Star Trek history.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's cute, kids. But sadly, there's a bunch of us old farts that know the real story and are very vocal and like, you're kind of fucking with history. And we don't like that.
I get it. I mean, Shatner's an asshole. Like, I understand if it's like,
Unlike fictional Mariner, he's a real asshole. No, I get it, man.
Well, he must have, I am under the impression that they were trying to get him to come back for that 2009 Star Trek as well as Nimoy. I thought that they were both in talks for that.
Yes.
He must have made some kind of demand or he must have said something.
Yep.
He must have said something publicly that they didn't like. Something happened there, though, for sure. Something happened, and he did something.
Well, or disagreed and didn't want to come back the way they were offering him to come back. No, and they, I found it intriguing that wasn't it for Enterprise that they were going to bring him back as Mirror Kirk, and that was going to be it was going to be a two-parter, and that was going to be the big reveal was, they were going to tease it like, hey, this historic figure is coming back to Star Trek, and they'd show Shatner, and then it turned out that it really isn't Captain Kirk, it's Mirror Kirk. And that was really intriguing, but he was asking for too much money. If you guys haven't read those fantastic books that Mark Altman co-wrote, and I can't remember his author, but the 50-Year Mission.
It's Ed Gross. I was literally just going to bring that book up. So we've got a mind meld or something. Sorry. But that book is amazing.
And he did a great one about Buffy and Angel, and he did a great one about James Bond as well.
Yeah.
I mean, actually the team did, both Altman and Gross. And those are incredibly enlightening in terms of a lot of backstage disagreements and why things didn't happen and why movies or television shows didn't happen. It's incredible, and it's 2 volumes. It is so worth getting and reading. It's amazing.
We published a Mark Altman book back when I was doing comics. Yeah, he did a comic with Steve Carrozier from Cinemax's Femme Fatale. They did a book called Elvis Van Helsing, which is
that's hilarious.
Exactly what you think it is.
That's very funny. Hey, man.
Yeah, Altman's a cool guy. I like him.
Me too. I love Inglorious. I love Inglorious Trexperts, his podcast that he does every week. And I'm a big. I'm a friend of Rob Burnett's too. Rob Meyer Burnett, the director of Free Enterprise, and obviously he and Altman made that.
What happened to Axanar?
Well, it's still going.
How much time we got?
Yeah, really. No kidding. I mean, they're making it, and they're making it under the parameters of the new parameters for fan films. So it's still going, but yeah, it's very interesting. Obviously Rob was part of Axanar, and then he left, and then Paul Jenkins, the great Spider-Man and everything else comic book writer, was part of it, and he left as well.
Yeah, Christian Gossett, the director, he's gone. I think they should just give that up. It's
still going on, and it's almost there's a new trailer for the new footage and the new story that they're doing.
Did that just come out?
In the last few months, yeah, they haven't. Again, it's just a trailer, but it kind of shows what they're. Yeah, I mean, Alec Peters, the guy who played Garth, and the producer of it all, he's still doing it.
I've given that guy so much money from the movie prop company that he had.
Funny
PropWorks. I got some great spacesuits from him.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Jesus.
I sound like Burnett. Like, here's this new thing that I have to pitch. I'm sorry.
And I also want to, if you're looking for good Trek stories, then you don't have to go that far. Really, the comic books that IBW has been making, I think, have been exceptional. And in fact, I just talked to here. I'm just going to show it for a second. That's the cover on the right. That's Dave Baker's a book, Star Trek Voyager 7's Reckoning, and it takes place in the 4th season of Voyager, and it's right when Janeway changes her hair, and it's the bob or whatever that she has. And the only reason why I bring it up is Dave really knows how to write Star Trek. I mean, they ought to. He's my friend, but they ought to hire him in a heartbeat, because they have this great throwaway scene between Janeway and Tuvok that Dave wrote, and she's like, I changed my hair. Didn't you notice it? And he's very thinking about the whole thing, like, what do I care or whatever. She's like, well, it's different. I would think you'd say something about it. And he basically was like, well, if I were to make a comment, I would say it frames your face better or whatever. And it was such a great Tupac way of saying it. And it really was, I'm like, God damn, I could literally see this happening as a live action scene. And it's an interesting science fiction problem. It's only one issue in, and it's great. 7's Reckoning, IDW Star Trek Voyager. Can't recommend it enough. Angel Hernandez drew it, and Dave, my buddy Dave Baker wrote it. It's great, but I've loved Year 5, from the original series. Mm-hmm. I haven't read any of the Discovery stuff, but I have to,
Yeah. The only comics I read were the John Byrne books, like Dr. McCoy, Frontier Doctor.
Hilarious.
Those were great. I'm a giant John Byrne fan, so.
Yeah, he clearly loves Star Trek. Yes, those photo IDW books he made. They were amazing. John, I don't know, Scott, if you've seen those, but
we'll talk about that.
Okay, yeah. Oh, that's right. Excuse me, Scott. Yeah, they took photos from the original series, like he did. And Scott and I talked about this. They did one episode one issue where it was about Chekhov from season 1, where we didn't see him on camera. And the assumption was that he was working in engineering before he became part of the bridge crew. And so he's in a red shirt rather than a gold shirt and stuff. And it's like, and again, they just manipulated and photoshopped these stills from the series to make a new story. They did a Gary,
Gary 7.
Not Gary. That was another John Byrne drawn comic. They did Gary 7, but Gary, his Kirk's buddy that becomes the
Gary Mitchell.
Gary Mitchell, thank you. Yeah, they did a sequel to Where No Man Has Gone Before, the things that happen after we think Gary Mitchell's dead. And that was a really good story.
Comics. But isn't that interesting, though, that when you talk about good Star Trek, it's not the shows? Like, it just makes me cry.
The novels are great. The novels are still fantastic.
Yeah.
I love reading the Star Trek novels. They had a great multi-part novel series about Pike's first officer, number 1, during the TOS era. And so she comes back to the Enterprise with Kirk and Spock, and she's Spock's mentor. And Kirk admires the hell. She's like, she's one of the most decorated officers in Starfleet. Of course, I respect her. And she's got a secret, but it's great. It's really great. So I mean, that's the thing, man. There are so many great writers out there that they could get, like the way Enterprise got those guys that helped Shatner write his books, Judith and Gar Stevens, and do their books and stuff. I don't know, Reeve Stevens.
Well, they were a part of it anyway, weren't they? They've been involved in the second generation of Trek.
Well, they were in Enterprise. They wrote for Enterprise.
But they were around before that, weren't they?
I don't remember.
I seem to think that they were.
I know that they did novels before that, but I don't know if they did TV or movies before that.
I think they're interviewed a number of times during those. They came out with those compilations of different episodes. The DVD sets, and they're interviewed a lot in those compilations. So I think that's one of the reasons why I thought that they were involved in the Next Generation DS9 as well.
You know what I was watching? Remember when Sci-Fi Channel first brought back the original series, and they'd make them special editions and make them like 90-minute presentations, and they would cut in new interviews with the regular series cast members and also the guest stars. And William Wyndham, they talked to him about Doomsday Machine, and they talked to Clint Howard about Corbinite Maneuver and being Baylock as a little kid. They're fantastic, and a lot of them are on YouTube, and they're fantastic to watch because goddamn, they're like almost 25 years old now, and everybody looks great, and they vivid memories of this stuff. It's pretty cool.
When I go on YouTube to watch Star Trek clips, I watch the MTV thing that I did.
What'd you do? What'd you do?
For the Price is probably sick of listening to this, but MTV did a movie show called The Big Picture.
Okay.
In the early '90s, and
you're on there.
Yeah, during Star Trek VI, we did a show that shot Marina Sirtis on the bridge, calling up the events of Star Trek VI as if it was their history, and then we cut to interviews with Shatner and Nimoy and stuff. It's just, I love saying that when people tell me I'm a Star Trek hater. I'm like, no.
That's like Burnett.
Here's my Internet Movie Database thing.
Yeah, man.
So you're a predecessor to the Enterprise finale, then.
Yes,
where
exactly.
Riker does the same thing. Yeah,
right.
So we have you to blame.
And then they called it out though in Lower Decks. I love that people on Star Trek actually watch Star Trek.
And literally that last shot with Riker going to warp and 5, 6, 7, 8. They cue the jazz music. I'm like, that was very funny. That I laughed out loud at that. And again, when they showed the picture of the security officer on top of his coffin and just that eye, those are like the two times I laughed out loud at Lower
All I've
Decks.
heard this entire time is John Suarez going, no, I hate Lower Decks, and it's just not funny, and here's 100 things about how it's funny.
Oh, please, let me, honestly, the 8th episode, and I did memorize this, Veritas, when they're on trial, and clearly it must have been rewritten that it was a Klingon trial, and all of a sudden it wasn't a Klingon trial the way it looked. Right. But regardless, that episode was insipid. It is the worst thing I ever saw on Lower Decks. And this guy who I do watch his YouTube critiques, and they're always positive. This guy Ketlowski, who does a fun Star Trek review show, he's like, now Lower Decks is standing on its own legs, and it's its own show. And I'm like, and it's shit. If that's what we're getting, I think it was that final episode of Lower Decks where I'm like, all right, maybe season 2 will be better. Maybe I'll like it a little bit better. We'll see. But no, like I told you, the movie episode one, I wanted to punch Mariner. I wanted holodeck Mariner to kill real Mariner. That would, or
You don't
again,
like Badgie? Come on.
and thank you, John.
Badgie.
Someone else mentioned Badgie in the chat, and that is the other episode that I liked. I thought Badgie was hilarious.
Oh God.
I thought Badgie was very, very funny.
Hell yeah.
Both episodes with Badgie, absolutely. I thought that was very, very, and especially when he was dying, and he's like, "I'm going to cut your feet off." And I guess that was what's his face from 30 Rock,
right.
Jack McBrayer.
Now, I've got a question. Has anyone watched Lower Decks and then right afterwards tried to watch a regular show like Voyager?
Sure.
I mean, like right after, like you turn off Lower Decks and you turn Voyager on?
Probably because I watch on BBC America every morning, not Voyager, but like I'll watch Deep Space Nine like early morning and stuff.
It was funny. We were my wife and I have been watching Lower Decks, and we were watching Voyager last year, and we kind of gave up when it came to season 6, and we tried to start going back to it, and we're watching this ridiculous episode of Lower Decks, and I think it was the Badgie episode, and then we started watching Voyager, and it's like Chakotay is walking around with all these like weird things, and he's coming into the cafeteria, and it's like things from other cultures, and then all these other, and I'm watching this, and I'm like, oh my God, it's just like Lower Decks, except it's live action. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. I don't know if I can watch this now. You know, it was funny though, because the camera angles are so similar. You know, it's real easy to kind of see the stuff like flowing into the other stuff.
I like Wayne's suggestion here. Forgive me. That John Price could be married to Mariner by Badgie.
Works for me. Yeah.
Good
well,
fan
Fletcher.
fiction,
Yes, Fletcher. My cartoon stand-in. You know.
Oh, we got to get Fletcher back on that show, man.
That episode pissed me off. Like, how you can do that to me?
Also,
that's his name. That's the engineer's name. I can never think of his name. Fletcher. Very good. That's hilarious, man.
The guy with the mustache?
Yeah.
No, we're talking about
the guy with the hair.
The frizzy-haired guy.
Oh, right. The guy who looks like O'Brien.
Yeah.
Oh, was he the guy that went crazy?
Mm-hmm.
And they got him transferred off the ship and everything?
Yeah.
That was a stupid episode as well.
Yeah. Yeah, because he should have been the hero.
Like,
he was the hero. He was.
I don't know, man. I
People
can't
don't notice.
I know Lower Decks is a cartoon. I know it's a parody. I don't, and again, for the same reasons that I don't believe Tilly would have made it all the way through Starfleet, and I don't believe that Mariner, her amount of insubordination would, I mean, it's, as they finally say in the last couple episodes, and it's like, you break the Prime Directive left and right. You're an asshole. No, you're not going to get promoted. You're an asshole. And again,
that's all the point, though, right?
I understand.
She's on her mom's ship.
Yeah, but also like when they're talking to the other captain and she's yawning during briefings, it's like, come on, fuck you. No.
Who hasn't yawned in a meeting? Come on.
I understand. But yeah, I don't know. I don't believe it.
Where they promoted her just to screw with her. Which was one of my favorites.
Right? It's awesome. It's a great show.
It's a mandatory poker game.
I am not.
That's right.
I am not here to convince anybody to change their minds. I swear to you. I am glad that we were having this contrast of opinions. I think that only makes for a better discussion.
She did like the scat poetry, you know,
Or yeah, and she shows up with a guitar. I know who wrote this, and it's like,
yeah.
All right,
Mariner's awesome.
Yeah,
you guys are nuts.
Yeah, she's awesome. I thought she wrote
I
something.
think the only one who doesn't like Mariner is John.
That guy right up there.
A woman, and it's a person of color. Let's get back.
That's right.
I'm kidding. But I'm sure that'll be clipped out, and people will say, John, what Berbalin says about women and people of color. He's an asshole. I told you he was an asshole. No, I mean, that's the thing. And the other thing that drives me nuts, and I'm sure we've all talked about this before, is the PR machine behind New Trek. And this has never been done before.
Yeah.
And all of us old fans are like, it's been done several times before.
I wish they would just shut up. I want to enjoy the show on its own merits and let it I understand the Ready Trek thing or whatever. It's really cheap to produce and it adds value for people, but we wouldn't. I don't think that we should know the whole thing with Nicholas Meyer and Brian Fuller and all that. That I can't take that first season seriously because I know it's a bunch of nonsense behind the scenes, and it shows on screen. Yeah. So if you watch it, you're like, I almost like want to spot them more than they deserve, because like, of course, episode 3 is a new pilot because they were stuck with this other stuff that they had to shoot, but it's just. I don't know.
You know, it's funny, Larry. I actually like Discovery's pilot, the first 2 episodes. I mean, it still has a lot of flaws, but I like that story in general. Again, there was weird things. I didn't believe that they would be so dumb and walk into a Klingon situation without knowing Archer's briefings. I'm sure Archer, after his encounters with the Klingons, even though it was 70-year-old or 80-year-old information, was likely debriefed by Starfleet. And if they really wanted to learn about the Klingons, they would have had that information accessible. But yeah, I don't know why, but I did kind of like Voyager's or Discovery's pilot.
I have to say that I was really looking forward to that show, and making me read subtitles for 3 minutes made me just hate it. I'm like,
that was a mistake.
Goodbye.
Well,
that was a mistake for sure.
They did it again in this opening episode of season 3. There was a lot of alien speak with
subtitles. But at least it was one guy. You know, it wasn't like
we don't need it.
And there was a possible reason for it too.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, well, if that's what's going on, I don't care. You've completely lost me. You've got new Klingon makeup that I want to look at. I love makeup and costumes and movie props and stuff, and now I have to read this now. Oh, stop!
It was really painful. It was really, really painful, and I think the other thing about that, the new Klingon makeup, I saw something online where they were making up Mary Chico in the Klingon makeup, and in the old days, I think they just like slapped the forehead on people and that was it. But they actually have a mask on top of her face now too, which it gives that that feeling of fakeness. You know, it's not legitimate. It doesn't feel real enough. It looks fake, and I wish they hadn't done that.
It certainly hamstrings the actor. Like, how are you supposed to talk past all that stuff?
Yeah, but then look at Armin Shimmerman and Rene Auberjois being able to act through their makeup and everything.
Yeah, but they gave them at least their eyes for expression. And the Ferengi, you have this part of your face open, so you still get
right.
Odo was kind of a Rene Auberjonois was a good enough actor to pull that out from underneath it, but just putting giant things on people's heads and mouth and teeth, mouth appliances, and then have them talk another language. It's like, what are you doing?
The one thing that I do find interesting, mentioning Armin Shimmerman and Renee, after loving Deep Space Nine as much as I do, I find I am able to watch the first season a lot more easily than I was when it initially aired, because it knowing where it's going made it easier. I mean, they had a lot to set up, and now with hindsight, I can appreciate that. Okay, we needed to know the motivations of the Bajorans to understand how politics and religion were really mixed and screwing them up. And man, Louise Fletcher was so amazing as Kai Wynn, and just that idea of like an evil pope that is really like screwing with the country's trajectory or the planet's trajectory and stuff. No, I mean that's it just made me like it more.
I didn't realize till just now that, like, man, I'm really harsh on Star Trek's beginnings, because Deep Space Nine put me off because I loved Avery Brooks from Spencer. I was just like, oh my God, that's the guy I want running a Star Trek. Okay, yes. It's time. And then they gave him hair and cut his goatee and made him a commander. I'm like, what was the point of that? It's like putting me in a dress, Okay, that's a really beautiful dress, but what is the point of that? It just doesn't work.
Larry Young in the Jamie Farr story. I love it. That's fantastic.
I'm represented. Call it. I'll read the script.
No, I hear you, man. And he was Avery Brooks. Scott, were you at Wizard Chicago the year Avery Brooks was there?
Oh yeah, I've got a great story about that actually.
All right, I'll do mine and then you do yours.
Yeah.
We're at the bar and he's there, and Mr. Brooks, how you doing? And I said the same thing, Larry. I'm like, listen, I love Captain Sisko, but you had me at Hawk, and he big smile on his face, and I'm like. And he's like, what's your name? And I'm like, John, blah, blah, blah. We're talking. I'm like, it'd be an honor to buy you a drink. He's like, oh, that's not necessary. I'm like, seriously, it'd be great. Puts his hand on my shoulder, and he becomes Ben Sisko. And he's like, John, you don't have to buy me a drink. We're having a lovely conversation. And I'm like, literally, in my head, I'm like, okay, I don't want to bother you anymore.
Right.
I don't want to go away right now. Thank you. And it was great. But seriously, he smiled the whole time. Could not have been greater to me as a fan. That not knowing me from Adam. And seriously, I'm just like, oh, you so fulfilled how much I love you as an actor and as both Hawk and as Ben Sisko. So what happened with you, Scott?
Well, it was the first year that there are no comic companies at Wizard World. And so they filled it with Star Trek people. And I walked in, and there's Q sitting there and there's Data sitting there. And there's Captain Sisko. And, I saw them and I was like, I can't do this. I can't walk over and talk to these people. I just can't do it. But there he was. And I'm like, I got to go say hello to him. So I go over to him and I just said, hey, I wanted to let you know that DS9 is my favorite Star Trek show. And I pull it out every year and rewatch it. And I go to shake his hand and he grabs my hand with both of his hands. And he starts staring lovingly into my eyes. He's like, what's your name? And I'm like, Scott. And he's not letting go. And he's not letting go. And he's like, thank you very much, Scott. And he's not letting go. And he's not letting go. And this is going on for a long time. And I'm like, I got to get the hell away from this guy. What is this? And then I find out later on that he does that to everybody because, he's got his handlers at these conventions. And they're basically like, give us $30. You got your autograph, get lost. And he wants it to be an experience. Well, he gave me an experience. I scared the crap out of me. It's a decade later, and I'm talking about like it happened yesterday, and I'm still like, I don't know if I could go say anything to him ever again. It was funny, it was cool, but it was a little creepy.
Actors are really different from regular people. Like I've met a lot of celebrities doing what I do, and I don't have that fanboy thing anymore because it's just been burned out of my soul. But I met Jeff Fahey when he was doing Lost. Awesome. And I'm like, all my friends were like, they knew I liked Lost a lot. And they were always like, oh, dude, he plays you. You're he's the Larry Young of the team. The drunken helicopter guy that has nothing to do with what's really going on. And so I kind of it built up in my soul where I was like, oh, God, I got to meet Jeff Fahey. He's got the beard, wears Hawaiian shirts. I gotta meet him. And talking about Altman, his partner, Steve Crozier, was doing an event. And I was like, dude, you got to just get me to talk to him for 2 seconds. I did. When he talked to me, it was really cool. But I was his producer's friend. But at the end, I was like, look, I'm just a huge fan of your stuff. And just thanks for taking the time. And he shakes my hand, looks me right in the eyes with his blue eyes and goes, yeah, man, it was real cool to meet you. And it flipped me out for half an hour. I'm like, he thinks it was cool to meet me? Like, I believe that. And he's acting, But it speaks to Avery Brooks, it makes that experience. And I'm like, wow, how cool that is to have. It's like a superpower. You turn that smile on or whatever, and people just go, oh, I love you. It's cool. Actors are weird.
I think the funniest is that documentary, The Captains, that Shatner did.
Yeah.
And you can tell that Avery Brooks is just effing with Shatner the whole time. And he's like, he's like playing the piano and Shatner doesn't know what to do and he tries to sing along, it's not working. And then he's like, what's the meaning of life? And then Avery Brooks looks at him and just starts playing the piano again and then plays the piano and stops and says, I don't know.
I also is it the sales room? I couldn't think of what it was called up at the San Diego Convention Center. Another great Star Trek encounter I had because actually Jason Kim, one of our viewers asked like great Star Trek convention memories. It wasn't Star Trek convention; it was San Diego Comic-Con. But I was going from one end of the sale room to the other to go to the other ballrooms to watch a panel. And Bruce Greenwood happened to walk right by Bruce Greenwood. And I'm like, hey, man, you're fantastic as Captain Pike, but I really miss Nowhere Man.
Nowhere Man,
and
yeah.
he shook my hand. He's like, oh, thanks, man. I really like doing that show. I'm like, oh, it was great. I'm so sorry that it ended the way that it did because it was brilliant. So.
Megan Gallagher, I had such a crush on her when that show was on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Also on Deep Space Nine. She was she's in the Area 51 episode.
Yeah.
She's the Army nurse. Yeah. I love Megan Gallagher. Absolutely. Hilarious.
I've never been to a Star Trek convention.
What?
So I resigned my command.
No.
We have to get you to when San Diego gets back on. We got to do a panel.
Oh, that'd be great, John. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So.
And the last local convention I went to, I was bigger than Darth Vader. So
you were taller than Darth Vader.
The guy that was cosplaying Darth Vader. That's
the official 501st guy. Yeah. I'm like 6'4". Yeah.
I made David Prowse happy when he was at Wizard Chicago one year because I'm like, am I nuts? Aren't you in Casino Royale, the David Niven James Bond spoof? And he's like, yeah, I'm Frankenstein. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, because you can see it. It's his face. I mean, they built the forehead, but it's totally David Prowse's face. And I'm like, I thought so, man.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's just literally like, 15 seconds. He doesn't have any lines, but he walks with David Niven. I either walks with Niven or Woody Allen. I forget which guy he walks with. But yeah, it was crazy. So, funny stuff.
Star Trek.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Any other observations, boys, or we can wrap up?
You should talk about your insignia thing, Price.
What about it?
That you're right and Cooley's wrong.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Okay, so the insignia goes here, right? It does not go up here. Okay.
Right.
I can't do this camera thing, right? It does not go up here. It goes down here like a person wearing a shirt.
Who has it ridiculously placed?
Yeah, well, fucking lower decks, man. They have it up here.
Oh, I should relook at that. That's funny. I don't know. That's
and your
weird.
point that they draw the other uniforms correctly.
They draw the other ones normal, like the other ones, right?
I think we should all just stop watching it because of that.
I agree.
It throws me off, I have to say.
It was funny when they first showed the updated Starfleet uniforms in the teasers for Picard. I'm like, I don't know. All right, whatever. But then when I saw him in the series in the flashbacks when he goes back to Raffi and he says they turned me down.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Whatever. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the lower deck ones are kind of weird because they're different from that, and then they're apparently they don't track with the rest of Starfleet because Riker had the gray ones,
right?
The Titan, the gray ones, the first contact uniforms.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's all stupid.
It is all stupid.
How hard is it to just draw a Star Trek? It doesn't make. I don't know.
I'm kind of glad. Another thing about Lower Decks that I liked was that Boimler does join the Titan, and according to Mike McMahon, that isn't going to be resolved right away, and I think that's great too. Yeah,
Mike McMahon, his interviews are great. You can tell he is an actual nerd like the rest of us.
Yes.
You read Kurtzman's interviews, and it's like, oh, he's just he's trying to speak hieroglyphics, and make it sound intelligible. Whereas Mike McMahon actually understands the things. He has a great Trek Yards. I don't know if it's one episode, it's multiple episodes, but
I've heard about.
He goes on and he explains. He's like, yeah, we did this because I like how this looks in the turbolift and the Jeffries tubes, and he just rattles it off. It's like, okay, you got it.
That's
benefit of the doubt for me.
He's legit. Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like I said, that's why I wouldn't mind seeing him get other opportunities, especially in live action. I can appreciate what you're saying, Scott. I haven't had a chance to listen to that new Star Trek podcast that Mariner hosts with
I haven't either.
Paul F. Tompkins. I'm hearing great things about it.
What is it?
It's here. I'm going to look on my phone what it's called, but it's a new Star Trek podcast. That's an official one, and it's Paul F. Tompkins and Mariner hosting it. And the first episode they had, Ben Stiller was on as a Star Trek fan, and then this week it was Stacey Abrams, and it's called Star Trek: The Pod Directive.
Right,
and it's Connie Newsom who plays Mariner, and yeah, Paul F. Tompkins. And then they've had actually several episodes. Let's see, they've had Ressa Aslan, and they've had I don't know who these people are. I'm assuming they might be writers. And
they're
then Mike,
probably the bridge cast from Discovery.
Exactly. And then Mike McMahon was on an episode, and the most recent episode they had Stacey Abrams.
Interesting.
So.
Is she a Star Trek fan? Like, what's?
I would assume so.
Yeah, like why?
I get Ben Stiller. I know, like, Zoolander had a guy named Mugatu in it, so clearly he's a Star Trek fan.
That's hilarious. I forgot about that. You're right.
Stacey Abrams. I don't get that one.
I love when you find out stuff like that. That's like I forget which real politician. I believe he was a governor. Brad Meltzer. Discovered that this guy was like the biggest Green Arrow fan and had a painted Mike Grell Green Arrow that he had commissioned in his office.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's how big of a Green Arrow fan the guy was. No, I love stuff like that. And
who was it? It was like the Prince of Jordan or whatever, like had a cameo on Voyager, or I don't know, the whatever it was. Yeah.
Or Mae Jemison.
Whenever they didn't know what to do with some famous person, they ran the transporter. I just love that. Like Mae Jemison, the first African American astronaut.
Absolutely.
Put her at the transporter. The Prince of Jordan. Put him in the transporter. Who cares?
Mick Fleetwood.
Terry Hatcher. Oh yeah, but
Mick Fleetwood. He wasn't even like
James Worthy, the basketball player. I know. That's why it's like, oh my God, you guys like Star Trek? That's fantastic. Yep. See, it didn't have to be all negative. We had happy Star Trek.
No, we all like Star Trek. We just hate Discovery.
I don't think we were being negative at all. And it's not even that. I really think that season 3, episode 1 has really just wiped the nonsense of season 1 and 2 away from me. Just the last 5 minutes of Sahil.
Sahil's great. Yeah.
Right. What an audience stand-in for guys like us, right?
Yeah.
We were keeping the faith while all that Kurtzman nonsense was going on. And
I'm a Trekkie like my father before me.
Right. I get to hang the flag, and you're going to do Star Trek now, and there's a goal to yes.
Yeah, Sahil pissed me off, though. You got to ask for your ID. Like, some lady shows up, and she's like, I'm commander. I'm like, okay, lady, back up.
Right. Yeah. She was convincing, right?
It had a and it's a weird movie, but there are parts of it I like. It reminded me a lot of The Postman, Kevin Costner movie.
That movie's like top 10 movies ever made. That's not a weird movie.
It's got its flaws, but I won't deny. I think it's certainly better than Waterworld.
I'm the Star Trek guy who likes Omega Glory best. So like the Postman is like, yes, salute the flag, fake it until you make it. Yes, I love that movie so hard.
Captain Stacy.
Yeah, Tom Petty's the mayor.
He knows to Tom Petty.
I had a chance to talk to David Brin about that, and when the movie came out, I loved the book. I loved it when it was short stories in Asimov's fantastic.
It's the magazine. Yeah.
So in the second chapter of my first book, The Astronauts in Trouble, there's a bit where they talk about their first kiss when they're kids, and the main character kisses this little boy named Gordon Krantz, and that's the main character. That's the postman's name. Nobody knows that unless you've read the book. And so David Brin was just walking by my little 6-foot table that I had in not the giant booth that we have now, and I saw his name tag. I was like, holy shit, David Brin, and he's with his little kid. And I literally said, holy shit. And he was like, what? This guy obviously knows me, but that's not cool, yelling in front of my 12-year-old. So I showed him the bit. It's like, Gordon Krantz and he couldn't believe it. He was like, nobody likes this book, and everyone hates this movie. And he reaches in his pocket, he starts giving me all these pins. There were like giveaways from the studio with like, Kevin Costner's face on it and the logo and stuff. And my wife, who was like, she knew she married a nerd, but like this is a giant deep cut. And she was just looking at me like, what is going on here? And his kid was just like, this happens to my dad sometimes. I don't understand why. But so I have this giant soft spot for Postman because of that.
That's cool.
Yeah. San Diego, man, that's a great show. All kinds of cool stuff like that happens.
David Brin and I were both in a Discovery Channel television show called Prophets of Science Fiction. Now, David Brin was there because he's an actual science fiction writer.
Yeah.
I was there because I'm a science fiction fan. The producers stumbled on Word Balloon, and they're like, you seem to know a lot about old science fiction. And I'm like, I'm a fan. And they're like, yeah, we need you. Would you be a talking head on this show? I'm like, sure, great. And Ridley Scott hosted it, and it was amazing, and it focused on Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke and Lucas and so many others. And like that Shatner documentary, talked about real science and real science innovations that were inspired by science fiction. And it started with Mary Shelley, and they called her the first science fiction writer with Frankenstein and everything. And it was a great limited series. And David Brin was in a couple episodes that I was in. And I'm like, we're in the same TV show. Oh, of course, we were shot separately. He's like, oh, yeah, that was fun. That's cool. So, yeah, he was incredibly nice. And I'm like, hey, how about that?
Yeah, he was super nice. That's cool. I didn't know that. When was that on?
2011.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I bet we can find that somewhere, right?
I now have an IMDb page because
Nice.
You've made it.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, guys, and honestly, I really do, and also everybody watching and listening, I really appreciate the audience that I've gathered because of the podcast. But I had 30 years in Chicago radio, and none of these opportunities came because of my job in radio.
Mm-hmm.
They've all happened because of the podcast.
I just assumed that they were like, you're obviously a poised and comfortable guy in front of a microphone, so they just went, no, you just know science fiction. Come here, you got to be on TV.
Well, they had listened to the podcast and talked to enough about old science fiction. They're like,
yeah,
you know what you're talking about.
The podcast wouldn't be so professional if you hadn't had that experience in radio.
Oh, 100%. Oh no, absolutely. That's
you can give radio credit. Come on, man.
Oh no, and you're absolutely right, Larry. You're 100% right. That's where my 10,000 hours came from. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But But again, I'm a foot soldier in Chicago broadcasting. And the podcast has helped me get interesting jobs over the years.
Well, dude, when I call you the coolest guy in interviewing, I'm not just blowing smoke.
You're very nice.
You're completely professional. It's a joy to talk to you. You're always prepared. Like, it's amazing. So I'm not surprised.
Thanks, man. No, I honestly, you guys are always incredibly kind, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
And that's why I worship you.
Look at that. Isn't that amazing?
Prayer candle.
Before the show started, yes, John and Larry had these great prayer candles made for me. So now I am much like Ben Sisko, I am now a religious icon. I am the emissary.
Well, I have to embarrass you a little bit, John, because for anyone who doesn't know me, I've always wanted to be drawing comics professionally, which is what I'm doing now. And I had done little things at first. And one of the things that I would do is I was sitting around practicing and drawing and doing whatever, is I would listen to John's Word Balloon podcast. And there was one day that he had Brian Bendis on, and Bendis said something along the lines of, well, if you want to do comics, you have to go on this website, and you have to go on this website, and you have to go on that. And I listened to what he said, and I ended up getting my first professional job that was not through someone I knew because of that. So I would not be where I am right now with my own series if it hadn't been for John Suntress and Word Balloon.
Thanks, man. That's
there
great.
You go.
And again, that's Visitations, a great supernatural book that's set in Chicago and a lot of fun. And Scott's been doing some great stuff with that book. What, gentlemen? What else are you working on as we wrap up? Larry, what do you got going?
Oh, I got my Spunky Bean column. I didn't. Scott said do you ever watch TV right after Lower Decks? And I'm like, no, I immediately go downstairs and write my column for Spunky Bean, where it's nice and fresh. But the Shield column collection's coming out. Eric Palicki, Adrian's brother, is yeah, he's gonna love that. We talk about Adrian Palicki and just call her Eric's sister all the time, so that's where that came from. But I got him to do the intro, so that's
awesome.
Gonna be pretty cool, yeah. And I keep feeling like he's like, you just want to get my sister to write it, and I'm like, no, man, I want you to. I'm like one guy who's fan of Eric and not of Adrian.
Did you like the way Shield ended? Did it end well?
Yeah, I loved the end of Shield. It was they did as good as they could.
The last season looked like fun. I have to admit I drifted away, but at least I liked all the time travel stuff they were doing.
They did a great way of turning your character into a robot and have it mean something. It was really odd that was out at the same time as Picard. I was like, wow, there's something in the zeitgeist that people don't want to be perceived as human or something. I don't know what's going on, but they totally nailed it. That the robot was more human than human in a Deckard kind of way. And Picard's just like, I'm a robot that likes tea, I guess. I don't know.
You're a robot that likes tea, and you're still going to die at a natural age.
I
don't
know.
You don't have super strength and whatever. And yeah, it's like, so why am I a robot exactly?
I'm looking forward to season 2 because isn't Patrick Stewart like 108 years old? So like, I don't know how. They have to worry about like stair placements in the set or something, so he doesn't fall and break a hip or something.
That's why in that first episode when he's running around with Dodge, and it's just like, I think the stairs are more threatening than the Romulan agents trying to shoot him. I got to be honest with you. My hip.
Anyway, yeah,
it's terrible. Oh my God, John, what are you working on, man?
Just watching better TV.
Congratulations.
No, man, I don't get inspired anymore. It's by Star Trek, so that's a problem. So I've been trying to watch the Netflix Marvel shows.
Sure.
They actually inspire me, unlike Star Trek now.
So is that what you've been writing your essays on lately? Is the Marvel shows?
Yeah.
Tell about your folklore thing, man. You're so close to your own stuff that you don't know what's awesome. Everything Price does is
that's
awesome.
true. So
he's got
well, okay. So last year I did a paper on Axonar, actually, that won a award, which was nice. So I'm an award-winning Star Trek scholar. Thank you.
Indeed.
Yeah.
You hater.
I'm a hater, right? And two fellow professors and I started doing a pop culture podcast called Meandering Through America, and that's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, John. All right, I'm gonna start listening. That's great. Man.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We're not that great, and we need an intro song, but we're getting better. We talk about cool stuff. We all like stuff, so.
It's a good pull quote. We all like stuff, John.
Yeah, you guys are all PhDs though, so you have some pretty stellar insights.
John, tell us seriously, and not to embarrass you, but honestly, what is your academic credit?
Well, Larry's right. I don't see. Okay, so so I have a PhD in American Studies and concentration in folklore, which loosely translates to I study fan culture. Something we all might know about. So a lot of my time is just spent reading and studying about fan culture. It's a lot of fun. I love it.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Yep.
Guys, honestly, great discussion. Maybe we'll come back at the end of Discovery and see if we liked it or not. See if the headcanon we have going is surpassed by the writing of their crackerjack writing team, and that we get a fun. I
actually think season 3 is going to be probably the best season because they're not constrained by any of the crap we all care about, and they actually have it seems like they have like a purpose to the season. It's a stupid purpose, and there's no reason in hell dilithium should just explode. The fucking thing controls matter-antimatter reactions, but all of a sudden, anyway.
Thank you, and I'm really glad you brought that up because that kind of pissed me off as well. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
All right.
But at least now there's like a season story we can look at. So I think it'll be their best one, to be honest. I'm still gonna hate it, but
I was going to say that's
them.
not a high bar to really clear.
Right.
But you're probably right.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you. Well done. And I really appreciate you coming on. And everybody, thank you very much for watching. I thought you had excellent comments during the broadcast. But thanks for watching Word Balloon Live. We'll talk again soon. Stay safe, stay happy, and stay healthy.